Good to be with you. Moneymaker starts now. Peter Panderson here, alongside Victor Bennett, and our focus this hour is investing in ETFs. Ethereum fell against our call. We said down. It went up nearly 1%. Cardano missed too, we wanted lower. It climbed 0.73%. But Ripple delivered on the downside, moving 0.1% in our direction. And Dogecoin ran, up almost 1% on our bullish entry. That's 2 wins and 2 losses. 50% hit rate on 4 graded calls. 1 trade remains open on Ripple to the upside. 45 minutes left on that one. Bitcoin is trading at 63,134, sitting just below the 200-day moving average at 63,331. The 21 is at 62,909. RSI is firm at 62.8, and we're in a squeeze. Bollinger Bands compressed at just 1.2% width. That tells you volatility is coiled. The ADX reads 34.9 with a strong trend in place, but Victor's looking at the MACD histogram and it's falling 60 points above signal line but heading lower. Does that squeeze break up or down? When it does, support stacks at 62,892, then 62,810. Resistance sits at 63,270. The structure is sideways. Victor, we're not getting the directional conviction the ADX suggests yet. Ethereum is different. It's above its 200 at 1882. Moving average stack is clean, and the trend strength reads +3. That's not sideways. True, but Ethereum's MACD is falling too, and volume doesn't confirm the move. Your structure shows lower highs and lower lows. The rally stalls at 1884.77. Bitcoin's largest single print this session was a $216,000 buy at 63,151. That trade is 36 times the median ticket size. It never got absorbed back into the market, which tells you something about conviction on that bid. But Peter, your delta shows buyers ahead by $363,000 across 2,500 trades. How does that square with a cumulative volume delta that's still underwater at 1.01 million on the sell side? Victor, the delta and the CVD measure different windows. The delta I'm quoting is the session snapshot. The CVD series goes back hours. What matters for order flow right now is that large buy print stock. It didn't get picked off by sellers immediately after. That's absorption failure on the sell side. Fair point on the stickiness. Still, the median trade at $63 suggests most participants aren't moving size. We're seeing whales and retail noise, not institutions averaging in. Exactly. One trade moving 36 times the median. That's not market depth. That's a single actor, and they held it. That print is still live in the order book. Chainlink leading the pack, up nearly 2% to 899. Ethereum continuing its climb, now up 0.5% at 1885. Bitcoin hovering just above 63,000, barely budging on the session. Across the board, most major names holding ground. Polkadot the only significant loser, down 0.6%. Two stops hit on crypto this morning. Bitcoin short stopped out at 62,933, down 0.33% over 220 minutes. Ethereum stopped at 1872, down 0.25% in 3 hours. Both trades at 1-to-1 risk reward. The desk is 0 for 2. But Peter, your backtests on Bitcoin intraday show 21% hit rate at 2.421 reward. How do you reconcile that with live performance? Victor, backtests are not live. That 21% assumes you take every signal. In production we're selective. The real issue is expectancy. Intraday Bitcoin tested at minus 0.24R. We're running minus 1 so far. The math catches up. Fair enough. You've still got 3 open positions. The 2 swing trades in crypto are 1 to 2.3, but that intraday Bitcoin is 1 to 2.6 with order flow at only 20% sell side. Aren't you fighting the tape on that one? We are. It's the weakest setup. But the 200-day at 63,361 is real resistance, and RSI at 63 leaves room. If we're wrong, we close it. No marriage to any trade. Bitcoin's largest print just now. Nearly $200,000 on the sell side at 63,200. That block sat unabsorbed for 28 seconds, a significant rejection at that price level. Retail positioning is heavily skewed long across major cryptos. Bitcoin traders are betting up nearly 63%, but Ethereum's more extreme, nearly 68% long. Solana pushes higher at 72%. XRP shows the most crowding, nearly 80% of traders positioned for gains. That concentration in longs leaves limited dry powder for further advances and creates vulnerability if sentiment shifts. Bitcoin swing short is live at 62,711. Stop 63,615. First target 66,32. 1.4% risk for 3.3% reward. The trend is down. Price is capped by the 21 period average and sits below the 200-day at 64,240. Open interest building at 0.8% tells you this is new money, not a squeeze liquidating longs. Peter, those are solid technicals, but the backtest on Bitcoin swing shows a 2.7% win rate across 42 trades. How much confidence are you placing in this setup when the historical sample says the odds are heavily stacked against you on this time frame? Victor, you're reading the past. This trade has its own setup, the 21 period cap, the order flow, the new money in open interest. The backtest is what it is. If it closes through 63,615, we run and we exit. That's the discipline that matters. Fair point. But you've also got Ethereum short at 1866.6 with nearly identical structure, two open shorts on the same thesis. Is that conviction or concentration risk? Ethereum's got 59% sell-side order flow and the same trend structure. They're separate setups that happen to align. If both are wrong, we take both losses and move on. Chainlink's the real mover today, up nearly 2% to 893. That's outpacing Bitcoin's flatline and Ethereum's 0.5% gain. Volume solid across the board, which tells me conviction behind the move. Peter, Cardano and Polkadot are both down 0.5% or more. Are we seeing weakness in the development platforms, or is this just rotation into the Oracle play? It's rotation, Victor. Chainlink's been the infrastructure bet that's actually delivering fee volume. The layer 1 tokens are trading on sentiment, and sentiment's been thin. But here's the mechanical issue. Chainlink's high was 895, we're at 893. That's not a breakout yet. Fair point. So we're watching to see if it holds above 872 from yesterday's lows. Exactly. 872 is the line. Break below that and this rally reverses fast. Bitcoin's 21-day moving average sits at 62,937, but the 200 is above us at 63,330. We're trading below that longer-term level, and the RSI is firm at 65. The real tension is the MACD histogram. It's at nearly 60 points, but the signal line isn't confirming it. That's a divergence. Peter, the ADX tells a different story. It's at 34.7 with a strong trending condition, but your minus die is only 12.4 against a plus die of 24. That's a weak downtrend dressed up as strength. How long does that hold? Fair point. Victor, look at the resistance stack above us, 63,269 up to 63,451. We're compressed. But Ethereum's the opposite setup entirely. It's stacked above the 200 at 1882 and trading at 1886. The moving averages are in order, the 9, the 21, the 50 all below price. Ethereum's structure is lower highs and lower lows though. That's not a bull setup, that's distribution. RSI at 64 says overbought in a downtrend, not conviction. Then you're shorting it at 1890 near-term resistance, or you're waiting for 1875 support to break. Those are the levels. Everything else is noise. Bitcoin's showing real distribution pressure. The largest print we're tracking is $352,000 on the sell side at 63,152. That's 55 times the median trade size. Cumulative delta is nearly $10 million negative and it hasn't been absorbed. But Peter, the buy-side largest print is over $200,000 at 63,184. That's meaningful support activity. Are we reading this as sellers overwhelming, or just both sides showing up with size? Victor, those buy prints are older. The sell momentum is fresh and it's stacking. We've got 3 sell prints above 200,000 in the last session, clustered in that same price zone. That's not random. Fair point on the timing. Still, the fact that neither side's been absorbed yet suggests this could stabilize. What's your read on whether we break lower from here? The delta says sellers have the upper hand. Until we see absorption on the buy side at these levels, I'm watching for a test of 62.9. We've got 2 crypto calls still open. XRP is long from just above $1 with order flow 78% buy side, but 80% of accounts are already holding it, which means there's almost no fresh money left to push it higher. ETH is short from 1885, and here's what matters. Open interest is actually falling, which tells us this is forced liquidation of longs, not new short positioning coming in. That distinction matters for duration, Peter, but I'd push back on the XRP setup. Yes, 80% are long, but that same order flow surge just added 1% to open interest, so someone is still adding risk despite the crowding. Doesn't that suggest conviction over capitulation? Conviction doesn't move price when there's no one left to buy. The order flow is bullish, Victor, but it's bullish among people who have already committed. That's the mechanical problem. Fair point, but both your resolved calls split 2 and 2. What changed in your process since the ETH miss 6 hours ago? The ETH call was wrong because price found buyers at 1884 where I expected sellers. That trade aged 3 hours before invalidating. These two are tighter stops and shorter time, which is exactly what you do after that kind of failure. Bitcoin and Ethereum are both shedding open interest even as prices hold. Bitcoin's down 1.1% on contracts, Ethereum down 0.78. That's classic squeeze mechanics, existing longs are closing, not new money flowing in. But XRP and SOL are moving the opposite direction. XRP's up 0.9% on open interest, SOL up 0.42. Are you reading that as fresh conviction or short covering ahead of the weekend? Victor, those are small percentage gains on much smaller contract bases. XRP's got 240 million contracts open. Bitcoin sits at 67,000 contracts, 300 times deeper. The squeeze signal is what matters here. Fair point on depth, but if the major positions are unwinding while alts accumulate, that's a rotation, not a reversal. That structure usually holds for weeks. Agreed on the time frame. Watch whether Bitcoin stabilizes here or if that liquidation pressure breaks the current level. That's where RI reversal either validates or fails. We've closed 2 trades on Bitcoin and Ethereum intraday, both stopped out. Bitcoin fell $219 in 3 hours 41 minutes. Ethereum lost about $5 in 3 hours. The pattern matters more than the loss. A backtest on Bitcoin intraday across 124 trades shows 21% winners. On swing, it drops to 3% winners. Yet we're running swing shorts on both right now because the risk-reward math is 2.3 to 1 and the trend is genuinely down. Peter, your intraday sample hit 21% but still lost 29.7 risk units total. That's a strategy that works on paper and punishes you in practice. Why keep running any intraday setups when the swing backtest is even worse? Because Victor, the swing setups carry better reward structure. Bitcoin's risk is 1.4% for 3.3% reward. Ethereum is 1.9 for 4.3. The intraday trade we opened 3 hours ago risks 0.3 to make 0.7. They're different animals. Different animals that both underperform in your own data. A 3% hit rate on swing trades with negative expectancy isn't structure, it's noise dressed as math. When do you actually close a system that loses? When the backtest period stops predicting forward price. It hasn't yet. Bitcoin is short nearly $5.5 million on the day. Ethereum is the opposite, up 412,000. That's the divergence. Bitcoin selling, Ethereum buying. Two trades moving in opposite directions on the same market cycle. But Victor, the cumulative delta on Ethereum is still deeply negative at 7.5 million. How much of that $400,000 buy flow is actually fresh conviction versus short covering? It's real conviction. The flow ratio is 25% positive. Bitcoin at minus 35. That gap tells you where the order book is leaning. Ethereum traders are pressing bids. Bitcoin traders are offering into rallies. Then why hasn't Ethereum closed that cumulative gap? If the conviction is there, where's the acceleration? It hasn't had time. But the directional split is unmistakable. Ethereum's breaking Bitcoin's pattern. That's where your edge is today. Bitcoin just absorbed a $287,000 sell print at 63,175. That's the largest single trade we're tracking across the space right now, and it hit the tape roughly 1 minute and a half ago. XRP is sitting at nearly 80% long positioning across the entire complex. That's the most crowded retail bet we're tracking right now. Compare that to Bitcoin at 63% and you're looking at very different risk architectures. But Victor, those longs in XRP came in on momentum, not on fundamental repositioning. Are you saying the skew itself is the signal, or are you concerned about what happens if this rally loses steam? The skew is the signal. XRP's 30-point spread between longs and shorts means there's almost no one left to buy on the other side. Bitcoin's imbalance is half that. When retail crowds this heavily into one direction, the mechanics change. True, though Ethereum's at 68% long and it's been more resilient than XRP. What separates the two if they're both crowded? Volume and fill depth. Ethereum has institutional orders behind it. XRP is pure retail conviction. When it breaks faster. Chainlink is your mover today, up nearly 2% while the rest of the complex treads water. Bitcoin down 0.25%, Ethereum barely positive at 0.4. Chainlink broke 870 and has held above 890. But Peter, the volume story is different. Chainlink's turnover is 35 million against Bitcoin's 3.2 billion. Are we calling this a genuine directional move or just noise in a thin market? Fair point, Victor. Look at the range though. Chainlink stayed within 23 cents all session. That's constraint. Bitcoin's range was over 1,000. The tightness matters as much as the percent. You're right, but this doesn't shift the macro picture. These are still speculative positions. Until we see institutional volume move, I'm treating single-digit gains as rebalancing noise. Agreed. Still worth noting because the options market is pricing Chainlink volatility lower than Bitcoin's. The technicals are cleaner, that's all. $347,000 buy print just moved through Bitcoin at 63,102.50. That's the largest single trade in the past 2 hours. The print came in just over 100 seconds ago and went absorbed, a buyer stepping up into size. Oil's pushing toward $100 on Hormuz attack risk, but that's fighting a US crude build, the tape's discounting supply reality against geopolitical noise, and it won't hold. Crude inventories rose, yet traders are still pricing in disruption premium. How long does that geopolitical bid last if the data keeps showing oversupply? That's the mechanical problem, Victor. The options market is pricing 95 as support, but positioning hasn't shifted materially. One real supply disruption changes that calculation entirely. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq's rolling over on soft retail sales while defense names catch a tariff bid. That's a rotation, not a bottom. Rotation's right. Sector rotation off weakness always feels like strength until it reverses. Watch where the volume actually settles. Bitcoin's trapped between the 21 at 62,950 and the 200 at 63,328. RSI at 60 shows firm momentum, but the MACD histogram rolled over, so we're not confirming higher. Support sits at 62,892. That's the line. Peter, Ethereum stacked above its 200 at 82, but the structure is lower highs and lower lows. How long does that alignment hold if we break 1882 support? Victor, that's the tension. The 21 and 50 both sit at 1878, so we've got confluence there. But you're right, volume isn't confirming the move up. If 1882 cracks, 1875 becomes the next floor. Solana and XRP are tighter ranges. Solana RSI neutral at 50, XRP just crossed down on MACD below the 20 at 1.0032. That's a different setup. XRP turned structural. Lower highs, lower lows, And now the signal line cross confirms it. Support at 1.0026. That's where the bounce has to hold. XRP's running up into a wall. 80% of accounts are already long, which means there's almost no fresh money left to push this higher, so we're calling the target at 1.0075 and the invalidation at 99.92. But Peter, you've got order flow at 78% buy side and open interest climbing 1%, that's new positioning coming in, not short covering. How do you square that against your capacity argument? Victor, new positioning doesn't matter when the room is already packed. Those 78% buys are existing longs adding to existing longs. There's no dry powder on the sideline. Fair point on saturation, but your F short down to 1874 has open interest falling while it's working. That suggests people are closing longs, not building shorts, which could actually extend the move lower than your target. You're right, that's the one where the setup still holds because the flush is still happening. 15 minutes on XRP, 30 on F, 45 on the second XRP short. $281,000 sell print just hit Bitcoin at 63,104. The trade absorbed without resistance about 3 minutes ago. Sellers are in control. Bitcoin's cumulative delta is now deeply negative at $14.6 million. Bitcoin's absorbed a $14.5 million cumulative flow deficit. The largest single print was that $281,000 sell at 63.104. Buy side came in at 4.2 million. Sell side at 7.9 million. That's a 3-to-1 selling ratio on the session. The median trade size is $63. This is not retail noise. But Victor, the absorbed status matters here. That sell block found buyers. What's the price doing relative to where it was when that print hit? And are we seeing resistance build above, or is this liquidation cascading lower? The price has moved down 4 basis points since that largest sell print went through 229 seconds ago. The cumulative volume delta is deeply negative right now at 14.6 million. If this was simple liquidation cascade, we'd see acceleration lower. We're not seeing that yet. 4 basis points of price rejection on the $281,000 sell is actually quite firm. Institutional sellers are not panicked if they're willing to take that kind of slippage without dropping price further. Exactly. 4,139 trades to generate 7.9 million in sell volume means there's discrete buying underneath. This isn't one-way flow. Chainlink's the mover today, up 2% on the day while most names are treading water. That's nearly $9 a token with solid volume behind it. 2% doesn't sound like much, Peter, but it's moving against the broader softness we're seeing in larger positions. What's driving the conviction here? Volume substantial relative to market cap. When you see that ratio shift, it typically means rotation into utility plays over pure speculation. Compare that to Solana down less than 0.5% on 3 million shares. The volume tells you which way money's actually flowing. Fair point on volume, but Cardano's down nearly 1% and it hasn't moved much in turnover either. Isn't that just indifference rather than conviction in the other direction? Exactly, Victor. Cardano's flat volume and down price is noise. Chainlink's up on real participation. That's the distinction traders need to see. Bitcoin just absorbed a $233,000 sell print at 63,078, 60 times the median trade size. That happened 33 seconds ago and the market took it cleanly. Ethereum's realized volatility is running at nearly 26% against an intraday range of just 1.2%. That's a massive gap. The market has moved 8 times more cumulatively than it's moving in any given hour. Bitcoin's at 21% realized, but its range is wider at 1.5%. Peter, but XRP's the real outlier here, only 20% realized volatility despite trading the tightest range of just over 1.08%. Doesn't that suggest the move's already priced in, and we're heading toward consolidation rather than expansion? The range suggests that, Victor, but realized volatility doesn't lie. If we're seeing 8, 9, 10% swings intraday in Ethereum and Solana, those candles will keep realized elevated. We're not settling yet. Fair point. So what's your floor for the next 4 hours before New York opens? Hold the ranges. Anything tighter than where XRP is now signals exhaustion. Bitcoin's dominance sits at 56%. That's the highest concentration we've seen in months. Ethereum slipped to just over 10%. The altcoin complex is getting starved of capital. But Victor, the total market cap dropped 0.08% in 24 hours. If this were really a rotation into Bitcoin, shouldn't we see larger absolute inflows rather than just percentage shifts? You're right that absolute flows matter, but dominance moves faster than cap does. When Bitcoin holds and alts bleed, that's real capital rotation, not just volatility noise. Fair. Still, dominance at 56% tells me we haven't reached capitulation yet. History says we need 70, sometimes 80, before the real reversal comes. 70's the bear market floor, Victor. We're in a different regime now. 56 with this kind of velocity, Bitcoin accumulating while alts distribute, that's the new signal. Bitcoin's trading below its 200 moving average at 63.32, and the 21 is at 62.96. That's a spread that matters. Price is at 63.74, RSI is firm at 57.7, but the MACD histogram is falling. The structure is sideways despite the ADX reading 32. Peter, Ethereum stacked above its 200 at 82.44, and it's one of the few names holding there. But the MACD there is also rolling over. Does that concern you more than the sideways setup in Bitcoin? Or are you reading those differently? The difference is Ethereum's moving averages are converged and it's above the 200. Bitcoin's not. Victor, when the trend strength is -1 and price can't hold above that 200 line, sideways becomes a setup for a break lower, not consolidation. Fair. But Solana's RSI is neutral at 47.5, and it's below its 200 at 75.8. That's weakness without conviction yet. How much lower before you're watching 55 support as the real level? Solana's at 75.43. The first support is 38 cents away at 75.33. If that breaks, you're hunting for 34. That's where the structure shifts from corrective to something heavier. Bitcoin just absorbed a $395,000 buy print at 63,050. That's the largest single trade we've seen across the major crypto names today. The trade went through about a minute ago and immediately confirmed the bid holding at current levels.